to the Lexington County School District 3 Board of Trustees regular monthly meeting. It is Tuesday, December the 12th, 2023, 6 o'clock. We are meeting here at the district office, and all members are in attendance. And I hope we don't all fall asleep with all these nice little fireplaces with the cozy warmth here. We'll all be settling down here. At this time, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance and our prayer, led by Michaela Bard, the Batesburg-Leesville High School Student Body Vice President, and Zoe Henson, Senior Class Representative.
Will you please stand and join me in saying the pledge? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Loving and gracious God, you are indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all of your blessings, for the successful outcomes of our school events, and for all of our staff members, both teaching and support members. We ask that you bless them abundantly and continue to seek your wisdom, guidance, courage, and strength. Be with the board members in their deliberations and help them to be wise in the decision they make for the good of all of those who have placed their trust and confidence in their leadership. Amen.
Thank you both for coming and being a part of our meeting tonight. We will move on to item 1.4, approval of the agenda. Board members, you have the agenda before you. Without objection, we will approve the agenda as presented. Agenda is approved as presented. You also have minutes from the November 14th, 2023 regular board meeting in your packet. You've had a chance to look over those. Without objection, we will approve the minutes from the November 14th, 2023 meeting. Minutes are approved. 1.6, I will turn over to Dr. Atkinson.
Thank you. The December meeting is the official school board's annual organizational meeting, and part of this meeting is for the school board to elect officers for the following or the coming year. And so we will start off by electing officers to see, do we have any nominations for school board officers for the coming year?
I'd like to nominate the three standing officers, Ms. Burgess as chair, Ms. Frances Baltnight as vice chair, and Dr. Gunner as secretary.
All right, thank you. We have a nomination, Mr. Coffin. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of keeping the same officers for the following year, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move on to consent items. 2.1, the financial report with Ms. Roden.
Good evening. You got your cash balance analysis statement with your financials in your packet this month. The noteworthy items are the property tax relief, which is Tier 1. That's the $100,000 exemption that started in 1995 on the first $100,000 of your home. We have to have that payment by December 1st, so it came in this month in November. This year in November, excuse me. And we also got a fourth round of supply chain assistance for food service due to food costs and transportation costs. The state's been giving us additional monies, and this is our fourth installment. We did sell the Gleams building, and we got money for that. And we also sold the building construction house that our vocational department built. And that's the balance of the amount due on that. Do you have any specific questions related to the revenue and expenditure statements in your packets? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item 2.2, our superintendent's report with Dr. Atkinson.
Thank you. For the third year in a row, we had Soul Stepping, which is a 501(c) nonprofit in Lexington County that their mission is to provide shoes, brand new shoes and socks to elementary students that reside and attend school in Lexington County. And so this year, they provided new shoes and socks for our elementary school students. Now, if you've ever witnessed this, it's quite a feat because they personally fit each child, and they let them change their mind multiple times until they get just that right shoe that they're really proud of. So again, I just want to thank Soul Stepping for doing that again. They, like I said, they were at the primary school in 2021 and in 2022. They have been in existence since 2016, and they have provided over 10,000 shoes for Lexington County elementary students. So again, it's just a great event. Our primary school and elementary school were recognized recently for their physical education program. On November the 15th, we had representatives from the State Department of Education visit both schools and present them with their honor and recognition for meeting the student health and fitness requirements for weekly minutes of physical education and physical activity for last school year. So just, again, they recognize Ms. Mallory, Coach Balknight, Coach Evans, and Coach Y, Nicole Morarsky. So again, we were proud of them for the work that they've done to get everyone to meet the physical education requirements. And you think that's an easy thing to do, but lots of schools somehow circumvent all those requirements. They don't always get everything in they're supposed to do. As you're aware that we received a safety and security grant. This is a federal grant through the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. That's a long title. Usually it's just referred to as the COPS grant. And so we will be expending $666,769 through the grant to upgrade security and safety at our schools. So we're thankful for that. We're also, I'm not supposed to be telling this, but we're also in the running, waiting for final word for another grant. But this is a state grant for a little over $300,000 for even taking that a little bit farther. So we're waiting for the good news or the verification there. We had our first farm to table event at the primary school on Saturday, December the 2nd. Also, it's referred to as Farm to Families event. And so we had select families. They received a $60 voucher, and they were able to come to the school and purchase locally grown or South Carolina grown items. And so they were able to pick from local honey, gallons of fresh milk, sweet potatoes, pecans, peaches, grits, peas, butternut squash, tomato, sausage, and fresh chicken. And not only did they allow them to buy that, but they gave them some directions on how to cook it. So they were provided recipes, and not only that, those recipes were used to provide samples, kind of like Sam's and Costco. So they got to try those before they left. We also had our school nurses on site. They were able to share health information, and our whole food service department planned and organized and hosted the event over there to make sure that it was a big success. This was paid for by the South Carolina Department of Agriculture, and there were only 2 school districts in South Carolina that were chosen to host this year in its inaugural event. Keeping along the same thread, South Carolina Farm Bureau, they have an agricultural learning lab, and they brought that to the middle school on November the 27th. Lots of students grew up in thinking food just magically appears, but the purpose of this learning lab is to show how the food makes its way from being planted into harvested and making its way through all the logistical chain to get to their table. And so it teaches students about the importance that commodities and how many of these products go from the field to our plates. So, and it was aligned to South Carolina standards. Our local Rotary Club donated $3,000 to our backpack program on November the 14th, and we're thankful for the support of the Rotary to be able to further for those students that food does not magically appear at their table, to make sure that they have food on a daily and weekend basis as well. The Fine Arts Center has been busy for the holiday season. We've had the high school and middle school band concert on December the 5th. We had a third grade choral production last week on December the 7th, and this Thursday, the 14th, we have the primary school choral performance at 6:30 this Thursday night. So that's all my updates for this month. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. A lot of good things going on. Item 3.0, public participation. Do we have any cards? Okay, no cards. We will skip that and move on to information items. 4.1, the annual audit report overview with Ms. Roden. And is Ms. Davis here?
She is.
Okay.
Tonight, we have Gabrielle Davis. She's a CPA partner with McGregor & Company here in Columbia, and they are currently our audit firm. And so she's going to go over the findings and everything from the audit. Fortunately, we had a good report. We did give you like a little cheat sheet. We know you received the audit in your packet, but she's gonna cover like these 5 pages, so, and you can follow along with her as she covers the information. And then at the end of the evening, I'll give you the bound copies, so you'll have them for your records. All right, thank you. Here's Gabrielle Davis.
Good evening, Ms. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Atkinson, it's nice to be here. I'll go over everything in general. I'll go over our reports in the packet that Angela gave you. Our actual audit reports aren't in there, but I'll go over the highlights from those, and then we'll get into the general fund information and the information that she's presented to you. For our audit report on the overall financial statements, in our opinion, your financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the district as of June 30 and all its respective changes in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So that all that means is basically a clean opinion. We didn't find any items noted that we needed to modify the opinion or make any changes to that opinion for this fiscal year. On the first page of the items that Ms. Roden gave you, you should be looking at page 16. This is the balance sheet of the district by fund. So we have the general fund, all the special revenue funds, which include special projects, EIA, food service, the debt service fund, and the capital projects fund. For the district, the total assets of all funds was $70 million as of June 30. The liabilities were $11.9 million, and your total fund balance across all funds was $57 million. If you'll flip over to page 18, this is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So this represents all the activity that took place between July 1st, 2022 and June 30, 2023. And it's also broken down by each individual fund. As you'll note, the total revenues of all funds was $44 million. The total expenditures was $108 million, which has to do a lot with your capital projects that you have currently going on. That's where most of those expenditures lie. And the change in your fund balance was $8.2 million, so it increased during this fiscal year from $49 million to $57 million. Just keep in mind that this page in particular is just the current year activity and just a snapshot of what was going on as of June 30. For your fiscal practices and budgetary conditions, the State Department requires you guys to have at least 1 month of operating expenditures included in your general fund balance. That number would have been a little over $2 million. The general fund has a fund balance at June 30, 2023 of $10.9 million. So y'all exceeded that by $8.9 million. The district's policy is to have 3 months of annual expenditures in there. That would have been a requirement of $6.1 million, and so y'all exceeded that by $4.8 million. Every year, based on the previous year's audit report, the State Department also does a risk assessment on the district to determine whether they consider you a low-risk audit from their perspective. Y'all got a low-risk determination from the State Department based on your 2022 audit. You'll get your 2023 risk assessment probably in March, sometime in March. And for our purposes, we do a risk assessment related to just federal programs. We also determined y'all to be a low-risk auditee regarding federal programs. On the next page, should have page 86 and 87. This is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So for June 30, y'all expended $8.2 million in federal dollars across all your programs. The 2 major programs that were selected were the IDA cluster, which is all your special education funds received, as well as your COVID ESSER funds. It was $765,000 for IDA's cluster, and for your ESSER funds, that was $4.5 million. The next 2 things I'm going to go over are just the letters and reporting. We have to issue a letter regarding the financial statements and internal controls regarding the financial statements and other matters that we may come across. in relation to your government auditing standards. And we do that, we consider the internal control of your financial reporting as we proceed with our audit procedures and design them appropriately to be able to express an opinion on the financial statements. However, we do not issue an opinion on the effectiveness of the internal control. We just use it to decide how we're going to proceed with the audit. Given those limitations, obviously there may be deficiencies in internal control that we didn't consider. Providing an opinion on compliance is also not an objective. However, if we had come across anything, we would have disclosed that information to you, and that would have been included in this letter, and there were no items noted. On our second or third and final letter that we issue, this is regarding your major programs, so this is exclusively related to the IDA Special Education Cluster and your ESSER funding that you received that we tested. We audited that information and its compliance based on what the federal government dictates is a direct and material item to those programs specifically. In our opinion, you complied with all the material, with all material respects to all of those compliance requirements that were identified as direct and material to those major programs. So there was nothing to report there either. I believe the last sheet that you have is page 93. This is just a summary of everything I just said. The financial statements was an unmodified opinion. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified in our testing. There was no non-compliance material to the financial statement that we were required to disclose. For federal programs, there were no material weaknesses identified with relation to internal controls for those programs, no significant deficiencies reported. We issued an unmodified opinion on those federal programs. We didn't find any additional items we were required to report. And the major program listing here was IDA and COVID. The threshold for what's considered a type A program that helps us determine which is required to be tested is $750,000. And again, it also indicates here that you guys are a low-risk auditee based on all of those factors and a 2-year look back on the previous 2 years. I'll take anybody's questions.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Davis? No. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I appreciate y'all staff for, this wouldn't happen without them and getting everything we need and lots of documents. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 4.2, the school board member continuing education, debriefing the SCSBA Legislative Advocacy Conference and Delegate Assembly, December the 1st through the 3rd, 2023. There were several of us that attended this, and I'm going to let some speak about what stuck out with them.
Doesn't matter, I'm just gonna be general rather than specific.
The second general session was a look at the new education funding dashboard. And this was conducted by Frank Rainwater. He is the Executive Director of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs. He stated that the funding dashboard has been out for about 2 months and will be updated next month. The dashboard captures data for the school year 2022 through 2023. Multiple years will be added for longitudinal studies. The dashboard summarizes funding and expenditures for K-12 education to inform the public and provide transparency on school district finances in South Carolina. Users may analyze and compare data such as expenditures, revenues, fund balance, teachers and average salary, student-teacher ratio, expenditures per student, and percentage of students in poverty. Another factor about the dashboard is that academic achievement can also be studied. For example, the percentages of students meeting or exceeding ELA and math expectations by grade level can also be viewed. Comparisons may be made between the district and the state as well as among the districts. So there is a wealth of information contained in this dashboard. I see it growing in the future too. I think it's very exciting that you can go to this source and find out all of this information. The session was very informative on this new dashboard.
It was, and it's very user-friendly. I mean, anybody can go to that website, so it's good for your people in your district to know and realize that you have this right at your fingertips, that you can look and compare what you need to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to give you an idea of all the sessions that were offered at this legislative advocacy conference, it actually started on Thursday, and there was a delegate assembly orientation webinar, and delegates from the 73 school districts do convene to vote on key South Carolina School Board Administration business, so that the local districts do have input into what the School Board Association does. There was on Friday a Black Caucus school board members meeting. There was the first general session, which is always the most exciting one to attend, is when we have the legislative roundtable, and the legislators sit up on the podium, on the stage, and then school board members are able to line up at the microphones and say, you know, we need this, or why did you enact this, or these are the changes that we see, how can we address those? And there were several of our legislators. There were Neil Collins from the House. There was Kathy Landing from the House, Shane Martin from the Senate, Russell Out from the House, and Vernon Stevens from the Senate. And just a few of the topics that they also on their own, some of them kind of birdwalked to get there, and then others were brought up with questions that Scott Price asked. And just some of the things that were discussed were the high school league. Mr. Collins said the teachers were his main focus, and that he also was concerned that not all of the districts are able to give the full raises that the governor wanted last year. The governor said, you know, we'd like to have every teacher get a $4,000 raise, but the average was actually only $1,500. But then at the same time, it was only funded up through 23 years on the pay scale, so districts had to make the difference up. Mr. Ott suggested statewide millage to be equally funding districts, and then Mr. Stevens just pretty much summed it up, and he said we keep changing the goalposts in education. We never know where we're headed because the real rules change. Then we also heard from Bob Moran on the federal K-12 issues to expect this year, and we heard on the education funding dashboard that Francis talked about. And one thing I will say is that is like everything you ever wanted to know about school districts in South Carolina down to the numbers. All you gotta do is click and compare. It takes a little while to get into it and play with it, but there is tons of information right there at everybody's fingertips. We had a program on Sunday, and it was also on other education groups that would be advocating for things in 2024. And there was someone from the Director of Governmental Relations, the SCEA's president, Patrick Kelly from Governmental Affairs, Palmetto State Teachers Association, Dr. Jerome Singleton from the High School League, and Sandy Smith from the Association of School Business Officials. So there were a lot of different entities present. There were also Ryan Bailey, Director of Membership and Communications for School Administration, which is SCASA. So lots of input, but the best part is when board members get to line up at the microphones. That's what you go for every year.
And I will follow up on that Sunday session. Needless to say, everybody got about 2 minutes, but poor old Dr. Jerome Singleton, he was hammered the entire time on this new competitive balance and high school league rules. So he was definitely on the hot seat up there. They did not give him time to, take a breath, so.
Yeah.
And then I went as our delegate at the voting assembly and, did represent our district. We elected a new president, vice president, some region directors. We also voted to keep the same legislative resolutions that we have had in the past. There were some questions. We probably had about 15 that there were concerns from other districts about, but it was a good meeting. We sat there, we talked them out, we voted, and we ended up keeping the same platform that we're gonna fight for this year that we did for last year.
One thing that came up during the, legislative roundtable up there was that there was a proposal somewhere floating around up there to, abolish the high school league as it stands, and it would develop a new state agency to assume those duties, but they didn't look for it to go very far. That it probably would not happen.
So it was a lot on the high school league. That
It
was a
was.
hot topic, yes.
It is hot.
Yes, all right. Thank you both for giving your spills. We will move on to 5.0, action items. 5.1, approval for the Batesburg-Leesville High School Beta Club students to attend the Beta Club Convention held in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, on February the 9th through the 11th, 2024. And we have Ms. Kelly Price and Ms. Sadie Hallman, our sponsors, who will present.
Well, we ask that you approve our trip this year. We are going to Myrtle Beach again. They've decided to continue with that trip there in Myrtle Beach. Approximately 40 students are planning to go at this point, and they will be competing. I do want to say Michaela left, but she is our state vice president at this time, so she has lots of responsibilities that she will be handling when we get there, and right now we have 40, plus we are taking 2 additional faculty who will be taking over the reins next year. Okay.
Okay, board members, you had the notice in the packet regarding this trip. Do we have any motions?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the high school Beta Club students to attend the Beta Club Convention held in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, on February the 9th through the 11th, 2024.
We have a motion from Ms. Faulknight for approval for the Batesburg-Leesville High School Beta Club students to attend the Beta Club Convention held in Myrtle Beach on February the 9th through the 11th, 2024. Do I have a second? Second by Dr. Gunner. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Y'all have a good time.
Can I ask you just a quick question? How many years have you, the two of you, been doing this together?
Together,
Or how many years have y'all?
13 for me.
And this is my 18th year.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Wow.
you.
Thank you
Fantastic
very much.
Job with every year.
All right, we will move on to item 5.2, second reading approval of policy GBEBE, Gavin's Law, for the staff, and we'll combine this, if this is okay, with the JICFB, Gavin's Law for students, if that is okay. So that will be 5.2 and 5.3 we are going to combine.
Okay, there are no changes since our last month's reading, where we received our first reading on both of those.
All right, so we have that with no changes. Any questions on that? Any motions?
Madam Chair, I would like to make a recommendation that we, grant approval for the, second reading approval of policy GBEDE, Gavin's Law, for sexual extortion for the staff, and for action item 5.3, second reading approval for policy JICFB, Gavin's Law, for the students.
All right, we have a motion from Ms. Carey for second reading approval for policy GBEBE, Gavin's Law, sexual extortion by the staff, and policy JICFB, Gavin's Law, sexual extortion for a student. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Derrick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. All right,
Okay.
we will move on down the list.
IHAM, there are no changes to it. The copy that you have in your packets does have some formatting issues that have been corrected, so when it's posted, it'll look right. But struggling with the Google Docs to the Microsoft Word, but we have fixed that. So there are no other changes to that one.
You want to go ahead and do them all while you're standing up?
I can.
Thank you.
We also have FF, naming facilities, no changes since our last board meeting on that one. And there were no changes to policy BE either. Or BB, B,
All right,
all the Bs.
good. All right, so we have heard the administration's presentation. Any motions?
Madam Chair, I move that we grant second reading approval of policy IHAM, health education, policy FF, naming facilities, policy BE, school board meetings, and policy BBB, board membership, as presented by Ms. Bryant.
We have a motion from Dr. Gunner to approve second reading approval for policy IHAM, health education, policy FF, naming facilities, policy BE, school board meetings, and policy BBB, board member. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
so
you.
much. All right, we are at item 6.0, executive session.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move into executive session for discussion of personnel matters.
We have a motion from Ms. Carey to move into executive session to discuss personnel matters. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Faulknight. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. We are in executive session. And Merry Christmas to all of you.